Welcome to 3 on the Ones and Twos with your hosts, Tom, Cassie, and James. Just 3 old friends talking about their favorite records. Think of it as the coolest book club for music nerds.
Welcome to 3 on the Ones and Twos. This might be the best episode ever because I love when worlds collide and things are so special and life is beautiful, you know. And this person is a producer on the show, but my history with him is insane. What's even more insane is all of our history is through this guy. Like, I would not have met you if it wasn't for this guy.
My life wouldn't be my life without this person.
So, one of my best friends and oldest friends, Casey Yarborough, a.k.a. Tony. Where is that kid? He introduced me to Brian Kincheloe. Brian Kincheloe saw something in me. I sang out of tune. I was a little skinnier than this, but I was doing flips on a stage, and Brian was like, "You really got something." And he said, "Sing with me, perform with me." Summer of 1996, we're the house band at a reggae club. We've shared vans, buses, planes, hotel rooms, living rooms, all over the world together.
Yes.
I mean, I could cry talking about it, boats. And I've trusted him with everything, and I hope he's trusted me with everything. And through that, we put out art and created beautiful stuff. And really, like arm hairs and braille coming out of me right now. Brian Kincheloe, everybody.
Hey. Brian.
And I know each of you have the same intro. You know.
Yeah, can I tell a little?
My favorite band in Atlanta, Swing Riot. Remuxers, Blood Circuits playing soon with All Night Drug Problem Wolves on that stage.
And
Order of the Owl. Thank you to Shane, Donnie.
This will come out after that show, so
Yes,
don't worry about it.
yes, exactly. That's okay. No edits. Shane, Donnie, and John from the Earl East Atlanta. Much love and respect. PBR. Real quick, say a couple things, and then literally.
About Brian?
We're just gonna hang out and drink and let Brian talk about this record.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Maybe do some shots with Tony.
So, Brian Kincheloe introduced me. I met Brian at UGA. I met James a little bit earlier in UGA, but I met Brian.
All the same time.
Yeah,
I believe
kind of right
I
around
met
the
you
same
either at a
time.
special show or a Bad Brain show, and you ruined my life since then.
We were like instantly tight. We were
Brian
instantly
Kincheloe.
tight. So yeah, Brian introduced me to you, and you've become, pretty much like longest.
Best friend.
Yeah. And then also, Brian introduced me to Chuck Petro.
That's right. Beautiful. One of the nicest humans ever.
And when I came up to visit one time, the person, I had moved to Florida for a while. When I came up to visit one time, the person who was Chuck's roommate, who I was staying with, ended up being my husband. Yay! And also in band with you guys and all that. But just from my personal experience, like Brian, you and Brian were the only 2 people that spoke at my wedding.
Well, I was having a nervous breakdown. I'm so sorry.
We wrote a song that night, too.
Yeah, we did.
You did.
We did.
It's a great song.
Listen, every couple of years I have nervous breakdowns, by the way. That's the way this...
It's the cycle
That's the way
goes.
this computer
So
works.
are you overdue? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, insane. The insane thing is I hate to say the word happy, so I'm close to happy, but I'm probably the closest to happiest I've ever been in my life right now. So cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
I love everyone. Everyone's good looking except that guy in the corner.
Me and James ran around in skate circles for
You
years.
and James
I know.
have
Well,
such history.
we have old skate connections, but you're one of the first people I met sort of out of high school. Like one of the people, like, you know, when you graduate from high school, you have all your high school friends, and then you have your next wave of friends. He's like right at the very first of that.
And
of
that's
that,
the whole idea
that
of the
whole
show.
crew.
When I came up with this idea for the show, Cassie and I, sometimes we know each other so well, we finish each other's sandwiches. I mean, sentences. You know. But James, I knew, and we've gotten so close since we started the show. But he actually intimidated me as a musician. I've shared stages and played shows with him, but I just was like, I'm Seinfeld and he's Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like, he is that good. And now I think I'm better than him. Which is really
Right, there you go. You're the front man.
But no. I mean, it's all wonderful. Life can be wonderful, and we choose it to be. Brian is such a great artist and musician, and when he came to us with this record, I think all of us 100% were like, we're in.
No, because we were on like a Zoom thing, and he announced it, and I never do this, but I literally went, yes!
Okay.
It's like,
right.
Oh, that's my
Dropping
glasses.
beers and glasses, no edits. So what's the record, Brian?
Well, you already showed it.
Yeah, Wire, Pink Flag.
What?
Yes. One of my favorite albums.
I should have brought mine.
One of my favorites
I think it's
ever.
One of the best records ever made.
I agree.
I think it's one of the most important records made too.
So yeah,
If you look at subsequently the artists it's influenced and what it's done for music today,
For sure.
a lot of artists now wouldn't know that the influence it's had.
Well,
on
Mike Watts said that he didn't know what the
big
Minutemen would sound like if they had never heard the
The
sound.
whole short
Wire
song
and
thing
pop
came
group
from
were
Wire.
Their biggest influences, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just proves people don't know SHIT about like, oh, short songs are nothing, like, because it's just art, punk in your face. And, like when you talk about the guitar sounds,
Yeah.
like, it's like no.
Yeah,
one-
let's go through your whole your whole idea.
Why did you pick this album, right?
Okay, well, first of all, I think the album is incredibly important in that Wire came and went from what you hear on this record. They were, but the next record, which we're not going to talk about, but which is equally as incredible, but completely different.
But lovely. Like,
Lovely, but Pink Flag, they came in, it's 21 songs. The songs average between a minute to 2.5 minutes.
so it's a 21-song album. Like
Just boom, 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 boom,
It's
boom.
like, it's like 34, 34
And
minutes.
it's equally distributed of about 7 pop punk songs.
Yeah.
7 just aggro, like anarchic. You got to do a
Insane,
pogo to them,
aggressive, yeah.
like very, very like from a drum perspective, James. It's like very, what would you call it? Upright.
Yeah, I mean, almost like proto-hardcore or
Yeah.
something. Like,
But then the
but we're talking about
angular guitars
1976 when these songs were
Yeah.
written, basically.
And then the last 7 are the ones which are actually to me the most important musically from the impact on
I'm with you.
post-punk and to where we are today.
And alternative
is all
rock,
the dirge
yeah.
soundscapey songs on
'cause
here.
there's stuff
Like
that's almost Beatlesque. Like you're like, whoa, what are they doing here? Like, why do they sound? You know,
Yeah.
Like a fucking an effed up dream.
and then there's a couple songs which kind of
Yeah.
are a mixture of that pop brilliance and that dirgy brilliance, which I think make the absolute best songs.
And how do you marry that? Like, who chose the
Yeah.
track list and the way it's going to go? Because you wanted to give you this ride. You know?
So, and I honestly have never read anything about Wire, except for just talking to people. I've even talked to Mike Watt about Wire.
Yeah.
Talked to Wire,
Respect
but we
to
didn't
Mike
talk
Watt.
about Wire's history.
Sure.
With them. Look, I wore the shirt just to.
Nice.
We couldn't decide
This is
what
their-
year was this show was, but it was at least 2 decades ago, right?
It was from the
Echo Lounge.
the
think
Echo
it was
Lounge show,
2001,
and if it was the one with Ox, they played twice
didn't-
there.
yeah,
it was
I
either with
know I
Oxes or
didn't
whatever.
hear then.
And make sure your mic is okay,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to be sure when
Thank
you
you.
rustle
Thank you.
around.
So
You're the dude.
So, but what I think is with this record is, it really feels to me like you get a guy when you're starting out doing music, and I purposely not. Wire wasn't culturally relevant in the way the Clash were, right? They came and did something and left, and had
Sure.
this massive influence.
Yeah.
But they didn't have this.
They didn't stick with
Right.
one sound. They didn't.
Yeah.
They
Right.
weren't in that kind of consistent level where
there's
they
not a lot
they
of-
stayed in the consciousness.
So there's not this great library of things to read about Wire in that regard.
No, but they didn't want to be. But they didn't want to be punk. They
But-
actually
That's right.
thought by the time they started, punk was already over. They
Exactly.
just didn't
So what they
know.
did is they came in and they experimented, and what they did was to me, this is what it sounds like, is they made, hey, let's do let's do some fast songs, let's do some, I like that slow, let's get high or whatever, and do some dirgy, heavy
Right.
stuff. Let's do some pop stuff,
Let's introduce effect pedals, which
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah,
they
there's
did a lot
definitely
of
a
stuff with
chorus and like a
effects.
slapback effect on a lot of the
They had
lot of stuff.
they were like one of the first bands, punk-wise, to really bring in a lot of different effects
But
and,
Mick
and-
Jones
and
and Paul Simmons
manipulation.
went to art school, and Wire went to art school. And
Yeah.
look at where
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
what
Well,
they've
2 or
got.
3 of them all went
You
to
know
the
what I mean?
same art
Like,
school.
yeah.
That's how they met,
That's
right?
right. Yeah,
So
I do
it
know
is
that about
amazing
them.
what you take and what you gather. Our brains are sponges,
But-
and what you go and what you give to the world, and
What-
everyone gives something different.
What's
you know?
really interesting about them not really being like into punk or wanting to be punk is that like in like '76, I think it was Graham Lewis they went to see the Ramones, and he remembered like saying, "Oh man, we got to play a lot faster," because
Right.
like he really liked it. Like so,
Right.
like
So that's
were
probably
still,
where those 7 came from, right?
like,
Just
the,
that
the,
total.
like
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably,
Which
they
we've
probably
ta-
went and saw the Sex Pistols and the Ramones. Be like, let's do this, but let's do some Black Speed.
So
They were
you know,
contemporaries,
yeah,
too,
exactly,
yeah.
What's funny about what's so funny, and I know
They
that
were,
and
exactly, yeah.
they've had such a huge influence on the hardcore community, which is how I got into this record, which would have been my first
Yeah, so what
Minor
was,
Threat.
So what was your gateway? You listen
Yeah,
to like
Minor
Discord
Threat
bands.
cassette in like 1986 with 12XU on it is how
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
reverted back to Wire.
Yeah, because I mean, even like Fugazi, I think at some points were like, we wanted to be the Stooges Wire and like the Ruts.
Well,
like,
think
like,
about-
like these
Yeah.
you took from the angular guitars like we're talking
From
about.
a punk band, and this is an interesting thing, is how many different bands have covered Wires? How many different
Yes.
bands can you name that have covered a Wire
gazillion.
song?
REM's
could think of
covered a while.
REM.
That was
Fiddlehead,
actually,
which
that
is
was
another-
the first-
Fiddlehead,
Fiddlehead,
Ex-Lion Tamer,
I mean,
Yeah,
The-
incredible.
A lot of people.
The
have done
Atlanta
Ex-Lion
Fiddlehead.
Tamer.
Yeah.
The
not the popular one
That's right.
now.
The band,
The real Fiddlehead.
The band Elastica's one big hit is a ripoff.
Elastica,
That's
of a
right.
Wire
Elastica
song,
is Wire in
yeah.
in the
with a
90s.
hot
Yeah.
chick.
And-
Didn't
Two
they
hot
kind of
chicks.
sue them over that or something? Like,
They
didn't
did.
they have a lawsuit?
They,
yeah.
So
I think they did. 'Cause
But like
it was- yeah, they
Henry
settled,
Rollins, Henry Rollins did Ex-Lion Tamer on the
That's right.
Henrietta Collins and the Wife Beating Child
That's the
Haters
one
album,
they played when we went to go
which
see
was
him.
my first
That's right.
exposure. That's probably my like where you had 1-2XU with
Yeah.
Minor Threat. Mine is with Henry Rollins playing Ex-Lion Tamer and
Yeah.
being like, because Pink Flag was not a Turtles special. Like it's not something
Yeah.
you could have gotten
No.
That's right.
in ninth grade.
So I
It was a
kind
little
of
bit hard to
rediscovered it.
find,
So
yeah.
so 1-2XU, I found that song. I saw it was a cover, so I went and got that.
Yeah.
I really loved it. But back then, when I was just skating every day, it was all the upright,
Yes.
ratty
You
stuff,
want all
right?
the fast stuff, yeah. To,
Fast
to
forward,
get all super aggro.
5-6 years later, it was either our friend you went to high school with, Robbie
Yeah.
McAdams, or I remember me and him sitting
From the
one night and being
tirades,
like,
from-
explain to me
yeah.
how this album impacted him one night,
Legends.
right when I
Well,
first met
that's
him.
the thing. It's kind of like when you listen to it vicariously through someone else's ears. So, like you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, so Cheers Missing, props. To
Yeah,
you. Both are sick pieces of art. Like I see.
And
all
154.
stuff,
Yeah.
You know,
154,
and
yeah.
I mean, you and I have lived together on the road for 5-6 years,
Yeah.
and how many nights have we listened to like Kidney Bingos or something
Yeah.
like? They were listening to the Beatles at this point, whatever. But
Yeah.
like with this record, but when you listen through someone else's ears, like for me, SST what became this important thing after being a new wave kid.
Yeah.
And Watt would talk about pop group and Wire, and then meeting Beat Kinch through my friend Tony. Like, I listened to Wire in a different way. I never listened to him, and I'm like, again, like armors. I'm like, man, how did I not know this? But I knew it 10 years ago. Life's funny, timing's funny, your ears are funny, and I listened to them completely different.
So,
I never. Oh.
go ahead, talk.
No, for me, like I had heard Strange, like I on Document, REM covered
Yeah.
it. I was in high school, a big REM fan, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to check out, but I never. So I had heard Wire. I knew I liked the song, but and then never. I don't know, never really got to it. And then when I moved to Florida and I met Greg, and I think I said this in the second episode, I sent him the Jam Snap, and he sent me Pink Flag and Cheers Missing.
Nice.
Thanks,
And
Greg.
that was
Thanks,
my-
Greg, wherever
There
you're
you go.
at.
That
It's a
was
good
my
A smart move.
Locking it down.
no, yeah, because I
Greg, I
seriously,
think that might have been the thing that made things happen.
I seriously thought he was the
That's great.
coolest person after that. Because this, I mean, I already liked him, but
Yeah.
this is, I mean, this album is almost, it's flawless.
And
It's
talk about choices like when you're like, here's this thing like I had 2 posters and I've said this in episodes on my wall. I was 15 years old. I was wearing makeup. I was confused. The Cure and Psychedelic Furs. And
Sure.
I'm like, how come Psychedelic
That
Furs
was
aren't
your-
huge? But also, I don't want them to be huge. And then you hear like Jawbreaker, other bands who
Yeah.
clearly have been influenced by that stuff. Like, how come this band isn't huge? But also, maybe they made that conscious choice. But like, we'll put it out there. It's done.
Yeah, I think
Move
Wire
on.
moved, just
the
moved
next
on.
Thing. On to
Well-
the next thing. You know what I mean?
Jesse
Yeah,
Smith
yeah.
loaned me back in the 90s. He loaned me the Wire book. So there's
Oh,
like
wow.
a
I'd
book
like
that,
to read
that
that,
came
yeah.
out. It's amazing. And it predates also their Read and Burn type stuff. So
Yeah.
it was made in like 98. Maybe I could be getting the timing wrong. But I remember reading the book and it being completely fascinating. But they're the prototypical band that would, by the time they recorded it, they left
They
it.
were on to something
And by
else.
the time you actually got Pink Flag, they were already playing Cheers Missing material.
I mean,
and they would
Cheers-
frustrate the hell out of their audience.
Cheers
Well, that's
to
Totally.
Cheers to the
Never
band
play
for
the
that.
song.
They even did that live. Remember
that's-
he did a spoken word for 10 or
Yeah.
20 minutes?
I know.
Everyone was just like, I'm here to see Wire. What is this?
In the mid
I
80s,
know.
there was this band
Set
that
your
they
expectations.
had
Dave
open.
Chappelle stuff.
In the mid 80s, there was this band that they had open for called the Ex-Lion Tamers.
Yeah.
And they would play.
They would do all the Wire songs?
No. All they did was Pink Flag, and they said they would do it from
Yep.
start in order, and then once it got to side 2, somebody would just say side 2, and then they would start all the songs.
And they would-
that's
just so they
art.
didn't have to worry about
Yes.
it. They're just like,
Well,
here,
they're
you have
hardcore.
it.
They're
Now we're going to
totally-
play what we want to play. We're going to play drill and like all their 80s
Yeah.
stuff, you know?
So what? Another.
Tony, let's do a shot.
So what crystallized me though, Robert McAdams, he was really into the upbeat stuff.
Yeah.
Got me really into it. About the same time, I don't know, you know Brian Poole, BP Helium,
BP, yeah.
Elf Power.
Yeah.
So Brian is just about, 3-4 years older than me, I am.
Ooh,
and whether it was
Out of
XTC
frame.
or whatever band that we'd have late night discussions on his porch, Brian was always a couple years ahead of me about what music I would be listening to.
Yes.
So Brian and I had just...
Love you, Tony. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, Wire. Cheers,
Cheers.
Girl. Cheers, Casey. And
Cheers,
Allie.
Casey.
So Brian Poole and I have had like the
my
deepest
God.
Andy Partridge, XTC,
Yeah.
all nighters.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We had a Wire Pink Flag one, and Brian just being at that age where he was just consuming things intellectually before I was,
Right.
and then handing them to me. There are literally
He's
like
handing
10.
He's handing you his leftovers, like, you know.
There are literally like 10 records that like are like my deepest like influence on me. That
Yeah.
Brian has sat there and basically told me, I know you know this album. I knew the Ecstasy albums as they were coming
Love
out,
it.
Sure.
but they didn't burn into my
Are
soul.
you drinking that in two? That's smart. That's what I should have done. That was a big shot.
Yeah.
But they were burning into my
Thank you,
soul later
Casey.
because at another age, you get them differently than when I was 18, right? When I'm 21, I consume them differently.
That's why I talk about time. And music is, I mean, it's insane to say that I didn't get Thin Lizzy and T-Rex, and now they're my favorite bands. I mean,
Yeah.
that stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
It grows on you,
You
for
mature,
sure.
or you,
Speaking of T-Rex, would somebody please pick that?
Yeah.
we're manifesting.
Somebody
that.
needs to select a T-Rex. So just to say
Yeah.
the history around this is, so you can hold up yours
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So we
Oh, yeah, 'cause
both
I wanna know the
have
difference.
we both have like alternate promo copies of this.
That's awesome.
I have the US one. You can see the hole in the top, and
Yeah.
it's got the warning.
Yeah.
Mr. Suit has filthy language or whatever on it.
That is so
but
funny.
what's so funny is when I looked at Cassie's
It's Greg's, but
or Greg's, sorry,
AKA
Greg's.
mine.
That
It's mine now, Greg.
imported England sticker is so beautiful.
You got, I mean, that is amazing.
That is so
and you got the promotion, not for
you said you got it on
sale,
eBay.
hype
I bought mine at
sticker.
Wuxtry's. I have no idea which one it is.
I think I bought mine at Wuck Street too,
Yeah.
and it was like $5. You know, it was either there or at
Thank you,
Waterloo Records in Austin. It was around the same time. I had all three of them. They had Pink Flag, Chairs Missing, and 154. Someone just unloaded them all. It might be $5
wow.
each, and
But
I was just like,
is there a
Someone
difference?
was
Is there
about
a difference though, like on like any of the?
no difference.
There's no
order,
difference.
just-
It's just like
It-
no.
It's pretty much identical, but there's this. My whole story about this is that this is one of the albums, and if anybody has a similar situation where I own it in all three formats, so all three, but there's probably an 8-track of it
Yeah.
somewhere. But I have it in cassette tape, which I bought in Austin for my car. And I'm not a guy who's like, oh, I have to buy it on cassette or I have to buy it on CD. It was just naturally I ended up buying it on cassette.
It's just like Zen Arcade, Double Nickels on the Dime.
Yeah.
Milo Goes to College, and
Yeah.
Fugazi's
Yeah.
first
13
two records, which
songs
are
or
not
whatever.
13
Yeah,
songs,
sure.
but they became 13 songs.
But having them in all formats, Fugazi, Margin Walker, for
Yeah,
example,
exactly.
and the first EP are
Yeah.
ones that I
So
have
is it-
on tape, and then
It's
I got
just
it on
where you have
LP,
them, you're like, I have them
and then I got it on
Well,
CD
is it
because
because
It's
what
also
I
a
found it
record
on
that
CD
if you,
somewhere.
If you're in Fantasyland Records,
Yeah.
Peach Street or Walk Street, and you hit the W section, you're walking through the punk stuff, and you see two of them, you're gonna buy both of them.
Yeah.
You buy and give it
but
to a
is
person.
Is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reason
Give it
that
to
you?
somebody.
Because I don't think I have anything on cassette, CD, and vinyl. But
I just named the ones I do.
Are you saying
I think I have London Calling
that it's
on
because
tape
like
and
when a lot of us
CD and
really
one
got
record,
into
yeah.
a lot of this music when it was coming out, it was cassette is pretty much cassette
that's where you
or
bought
vinyl.
it first because you wanted to listen to it in the
Yeah.
car.
Right,
exactly.
Right. And then that kind of became so then you got it on CD so that you were able to be portable. But then when you got old enough to really appreciate having things on vinyl, which
Yes.
for me happened, kind of later. But
But then you, Greg, and you're making mixtapes. You're trying to get Cassie. That's
right.
I used to sometimes.
put this stuff on mixtapes.
I don't have as much vinyl as
Well, it
James,
worked.
but I used to sometimes
None of
buy
us
the
have as
vinyl
much vinyl as
when a
James.
band was
I know, that's
hurting,
true.
like on the road, and they like I knew I needed
Sure.
the cassette so I could skate to it, right?
Yeah.
But if it wasn't a
And
classic,
with-
I'd buy the
with
vinyl
his Walkman.
because the band was. For instance, remember the white vinyl Rancid
Yeah.
when we were at that show in Augusta?
Yeah, yeah.
I bought 2 of those just because they were talking about how their tour they were having rough
I watched-
financially.
I watched-
So I bought 2 white vinyls.
I watched Brian Kincheloe start a riot at a Rancid show in Augusta, Georgia in 1994.
That's when Lars escorted us, helped us get out of there.
It was amazing. He lifted
Lars-
Brian
helped
lifted a
you-
500
With a
pound
baseball
man,
bat.
man in the air and said, "Don't mess with my best friend, Chuck McCall."
That's true. Yeah.
All true.
And
But Yeah, but this is, I mean,
It is-
this is one
It is
that
like
was,
that-
is, you may as well get it. If you,
Yeah.
whenever you come across it, if you find it cheap,
get it in any
just
form.
get it, give it to a friend,
Well,
or
that's the
whatever you
thing.
want.
I mean,
you know?
yeah.
Pass it along
Please
in
give it a
turn.
lot.
I love what I love about this show is when we came up with this is one, you revisit stuff, so also you learn stuff. You know, I'm blown away by people who have this ridiculous pride that like you're like, oh, do you know so? Oh yeah, I know him. How about saying I don't know him? Turn me on to him.
Yeah.
And
I do that all the time.
when I get turned on to a new band,
It's so awesome.
and I literally didn't get to know this band really well to
Right.
the early '90s.
Well, like-
but I'm so grateful
Yeah.
for friends that said, "Tom,
Listen
here's
to
this
it.
gift."
Well, that's
You know?
We
like-
killed their new wave stuff from the 90s,
Well, that's
Wire
like-
stuff.
Yeah,
Well, that's like-
Me and
Wire
Tom
did it. Yeah.
on 11 on road trips.
Yeah.
We'll
But
kill
that's
like kitty bingos
well, that's like
and
the Marky
those-
Moon episode.
Me and this guy have surfed in California, listening to Wire a lot,
But-
sharing the same suit. It's amazing.
So hey, I had a.
But, like, no,
Mr.
so
Suit.
Go
You
for it.
freak-
no, that was a big shot. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, damn.
See,
Yeah,
this
so I
is,
was
just gonna point out
this
a
is the
couple of
B
musical
episode.
things
The
about
B
this.
episode.
Casey and
Here we
the Earl,
go.
now I'm wasted.
So I wanted to point out a couple of the musical
Yeah,
things
yeah.
about
Let's.
this.
I want to keep on the record.
So one thing that's interesting. We'll start with the drums. What's interesting is clearly it's a total like he's learning as he's going.
Yep.
Because the drumming is very interesting in that he makes some decisions that if you were a trained drummer you would never
It's
do.
stressful. No.
Which actually makes part of it. It's like he's first of all
pretty-
closed hi hat subdividing the
pretty-
beat all the time,
pretty
even on the
accident,
slow
yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
Is very unusual,
Yeah.
right? And to be honest, a lot of the dirgy songs like Rooters and Pink Flag
Yeah.
and Lowdown.
I like
if you
those.
open the hi hat out and you only did you half the beat,
If you're like-
it would be a doom. It would be a doom song. But because he has the hi hat closed and he's
Yeah.
it has this whole post punk thing, which hadn't happened yet, right?
Right.
So it has this post punk.
They pioneered it, yeah.
Yeah, and then when you add in the guitars, you were talking about the pedals. There's this chorus shimmery clean thing that's going on, and then even the fuzzy overdrive.
I'm not
It
a
almost sounds like they're still clean. It's like it's like, almost like, and I know the early like DS1 and the early distortion pedals didn't have a mix.
Yeah.
they were just add in. But it sounds like
They're
they have
just stomp boxes
whether maybe
at that point.
they tracked it
Yeah.
clean and dirty together.
Yeah.
But you can still hear the clean. It's not like even though there's fuzz, a lot of fuzz in there
Yeah.
and distortion, it's not overwhelming at all. And it kind of
Yeah.
defines the sound because it's panned out wide. So in those dirgy songs, there's this very soundscapey thing happening. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
It's very unique and processed, unlike other stuff at that time.
Exactly.
I like-
And they used a lot of like weird stomp boxes. And
Yeah.
I remember in the book reading about it that they had like when they became Dome later on,
Mm-hmm.
that they caused almost like riots because people were so bummed out about them compared to Wire, because Dome was like the bass player and guitar player doing a separate
Doing
thing.
sound.
And there was this one time where they mentioned, I remember it vividly in the book, where everybody was they were like rioting. They had to grab all their stomp boxes and pedals and run out the door while they
like-
were like
I'm-
being
Oh,
chased
man, I
by
gotta read
the
this
crowd.
book.
I like
I have no
It's a great
excuses.
book,
I need to read
but it
this book.
reminded me
I
of like
love-
the stomp boxes, and when you see them live, it's all very like, it's very artistic. They don't go dry.
Noticed
go
that
ahead,
when we
sorry.
no, I was going to say like I thank you guys for like saying that, because not as a non-musician, it doesn't really. I can only say that somehow they managed to make really short songs, like 35 minutes worth, 21 songs, short songs, all different. Like they all have a different feel. And still all feel comprehensive, and so
they
you guys
blend
explained a
together
little
so
bit
well.
Yeah.
of the musical side of it and like what they were kind of using that kind of tied it in together and made it
The
a
other thing is, they were art students,
yes.
Yeah.
not music students. So they literally were.
They kinda
were doing
approached it
trial
in
and error,
art.
learning as they were going. They were like, I don't know how to do this. Well, let's figure it out and record it.
There were a lot
And
of
document it.
underrated vocal moments on this album too. The way he uses his voice. First of all, he doubles down on his accent, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you saw in previous eras, English artists would go neutral when they sing. You know, in the punk era, people are doubling down on
He
that.
went heavy.
Yeah.
He's using that, but he's also, if you notice, he'll do some kind of fluid melody, and then it'll be a call and response. There's gonna be like a
Yes.
punk and a kind of a
Yeah.
movement to it. It's very,
I love that.
it's very unpredictable if
It's-
you've never heard it before.
I mean, I never noted, like, thought of that and
Yeah.
noticed that. But when you say that, yeah, I can totally see, like,
He's
it's
all
like,
over the place, kind of with his the way he works.
But
you know?
there's a lot of the songs that really, it is kind of like a back and a forth that
There's
works
a lot of
really well.
a lot of
The qual-
doubling of
yeah,
vocals.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I kind of think. Well, I know kind of think. I know opinions but I almost think all four of us would say it's a perfect record.
It's a perfect record.
It really is.
Well, I know. Okay, so speaking of Marky Moon and getting introduced to something and doing the show and getting exciting, like I remember, I think it was Jonathan Phipps had this Facebook post, was just like, name a record that you think is flawless, like you skipped no track, and I put Marky Moon and Pink Flag, and like hands down, this is one of my favorite. Thank you so much for picking this because
Beat kids.
wow.
Yeah.
I really think the influence on this. I love Marky Moon beyond words.
Sure.
But I really think this is the
Oh no,
one
they're two
album.
totally different things. I'm just.
But I
saying
think
for me,
I really think this is the one album that it influenced a generation of '80s artists that now when you look at the landscape of music, those artists, the impact of this record is just incalculable.
No, yeah, for
You
sure.
know what I mean?
Right.
For
There's
sure.
so many bands that might right now are doing stuff that don't even know that they're influenced by like Wire or Buzzcocks.
That's right.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah,
like,
Joy
By
Division or
a bunch
whatever,
of guys
yeah.
that got together, made some music, and then moved on from it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes.
And they're always searching, and even when you see them now, it's like they're still searching, they're still making amazing music. They're a band whose new albums are as good as anything else. And the point I was going to make is that this is on Harvest, right? They got put out on same as Pink Floyd.
Yeah,
same
that's
as
the thing,
like this is such an interesting band to choose. And they went on tour like during this time. They went on tour with Roxy Music.
Yeah.
Wow.
In like the when they were not Roxy, and if you hear interviews, there's an amazing interview on this podcast called The Vinyl Guide, just to say that with
check it out.
about
there's a difference.
you got a
So I got a
different.
question for you.
It's got this is separate,
I got a
and
question
then it's
for you
got a
about this.
sleeve. So this
Oh,
is like
you probably have the
cardboard
thing.
Hey
stock.
James, so you're an A&R guy for Harvest, right?
Sure.
Do you think that guy was like, we got another Sex Pistol thing we can put out real quick? Or do you think they had any idea the importance that they were recording at the time?
Well,
or were they
there's
just like Sex Pistols Clash? We got to put.
yeah,
something
I
out?
think there's a certain amount of that. Like Colin Newman is interviewed on the Vinyl Guide. It's after pandemic, so he talks about actually the last show that they did in Atlanta at the Variety Playhouse, which is the last show
A week before
That's the
they
one
went
we
out.
went. That's the one we went to. Yeah.
And they basically made their way up the East Coast, and then the borders were about to be closed, and they basically pulled over on the Jersey Turnpike and went to JFK or LaGuardia or wherever,
just went home.
and flew back to England. It's like one of the last flights out that they would have gotten stuck.
Yeah, I hadn't
And
put it together that show was so close to like
It
when
was-
everything
it was
shut down.
things
Yeah.
were-
I think technically
Yeah.
they said March 13th the world shut down.
And this was
that
the
show was
weekend
like the
before.
It was like the
It was like the Saturday before,
I was in New York,
and it was like the Friday the
I was trying to
13th.
figure out what I was going to do.
And so yeah. So anyway, so he talks about it, and he talks about how they toured with Roxy Music.
Wow.
And in the
Another-
but it
I
was
know
like
none of this.
but it
This is
was
awesome.
not it was
Another
not
awesome
like
band.
Roxy Music first two albums. It was like Roxy Music like Siren or even like one of their later albums. So the Roxy Music fans were like, this
What
is not my thing.
Well, to Brian's question is.
But I think
you got
Harvest.
You got four nerds right
Yeah.
here, music fans saying this is a perfect record.
Yes.
A record company is not going to make money off a band like
They-
Wire. They're going to lose money.
Yeah.
but
the
it's-
guy might have just loved them that much too. Who cares? He's like, I love them
I mean-
so much.
I think art is like it's very much like that kind of like a push and pull, right, between something that's really, really like
love to hear
ingenious and like beyond, and what's actually going to be, because like a lot of famous artists, right, artists. They were poor and they died poor and they were never known, and then later it's just then it's kind of like I have much respect for
Me too.
record companies that actually do take a
Having the
risk.
faith in the
Right.
And saying,
I'd
you
love
know
to see
what,
this A&R guy's story about why he did
He
this.
probably got fired.
Well,
Yeah.
But then later they were just like, wow, yeah.
well, I wanted to make sure I say this before we're done here today, is that this album is just incredibly influential.
Yes.
But if you stop here and you don't hear Chairs Missing in 154,
Yes.
you're missing the art,
Exactly.
right? Because with as ingenious as this one is, the next one has these just heart-stopping
Yes.
moments, and just like
Yeah.
subtlety to it.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing.
No, they're perfect-
Don't stop with just Pink
And
Flag.
also,
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
They're perfect
Some people
examples.
begin and end with Pink Flag.
Yeah.
I'd say go into the 80s, go into the
Go into the 90s new
Go
age
into
stuff.
the
they
new
did. It's
albums.
incredible.
It's,
Oh, yeah.
it's amazing.
I haven't heard them at
They're
Greg's.
perfect
Yeah.
examples of what, if you want to have a conscience and live the life of an artist, this guy and I, he's seen people come up to me and say, tell me what I'm doing wrong with my music career. And I've grabbed a dude by the collar and said, my job is to get my heart broken, lose my mind, go to sleep, cry, and write a song. And then it's out there.
Yep.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, they didn't like.
You know, like they just do it and then move on to the next thing. And thank you for that. Like,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Flyer,
And
Pink Flag.
one of the
Harvest,
things, one of the things I love about this album, or I've sat and revisited this album many times in my life, and it still stays. It's still amazing. One of my best memories of hanging out with Josh Favre, who's no longer with us,
Rest in peace,
was sitting around. We had a party at my house once. My wife and daughters were out of town. It was like, let's have a bro fest. Everybody's gonna come over. We're gonna put on, and we didn't intend this,
Everyone
but it
picks
was
their
like,
favorite record.
well, we put on Pink Flag, and we just sat there and stared at the record player and
So
listened
good.
to it back, the first side and second
so
side,
good.
and it was just like, this is it. This is all you need to know.
Wait, real quick, because I think we're
great.
running out of time, right?
Yeah.
I really would like to know if there are any, like, I mean, I love all of them, and I think it's a perfect
They're-
album. But if there's any that you that are your
First side,
your
the
favorites.
whole first side to me is just magic.
So, for me,
If
first
you had to.
before I even tell you what I'm going to say this. If you know, now that like stoner and doom and sludge are very popular, it's not just in the '90s it was the Melvins and Flora and Harvey Milk, and that was about it.
Sure.
It's a giant genre now. If you like that kind of music, you should check out this record because this record is the makings
needs
of.
to cover a wire song.
You should. I think you'd really enjoy this
I
record.
think everybody should check out this record.
Yeah. But
Everything.
my favorite songs though, I've got two basically.
yeah.
One of them is I like Mannequin a lot just because it's like the
love
ultimate pop, like just beautiful pop punk song.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
But I think my favorite one is Strange. I love the sound, like the sounds,
Yeah.
and I love the vibe because it's got that, still got that kind of like that.
It's kinda chunky.
stoner chunk to it,
Yeah.
like dun dun dun. Dun. And Lowdown's kind of like that too. So I like those songs better. And Strange is a good mix of that pop element they bring and that whole dirgy soundscape together.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these songs on this record this is their aggro, anarcho punk pogo song.
Sure.
This is their dirgy song. This is their pop.
Right, right.
That's a
Really?
good. Strange to me is like a really good blend. It's So Obvious is kind of like that too. So I think Strange is probably my favorite. Even though Ex-Land Tamer is the one I have the heart for because that's the one Fiddlehead covered. And it, like when I heard that when I was a kid,
Yeah,
I was
and
just
it's
like,
And it's an awesome song.
Incredible.
and it's a
when you hear
hit
like,
single.
I know we need to close up, but when you hear like artists that you love, you know, you hear their influences, and then you like listen to them different. You like, or someone cover them. Like, man, you listen to it differently too. You're like,
Yeah.
Ex-Lion Tamer. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I mean, it's insane. You
They
know.
played it live.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was going to get a beer, and I was in the beer line. We're at Variety Playhouse, and they're like, doom 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 doom.
But you got up, but then you got up there really quick. You got up there really quick. You
Yeah,
got
it's
up there
like-
really
Well,
quick.
that's
You only
good.
been
Wait a minute,
there
what?
for a second.
And they were also like pretty rusty. They were just
Right.
like,
So
we're
what's
just
your-
gonna do this for
Which
the
are
fans.
your
It's
favorite?
cool,
Which
you
is
know.
your
So-
favorite? Wait,
What's your
favorite? Okay.
I mean, Three Girl Rumba.
Yes, that's mine.
I mean,
yeah.
it's such a. I
Catchy.
mean, it's just such an amazing
It
song.
is.
So,
It is.
so B. Kinch is such a special person in all of our lives.
Yes.
And I know he's me and this guy are like husband and wife sometimes, you know. And I love
like
that.
The Odd Couple.
We're gonna keep on working on stuff together. He recently reached out to my family for sent some wonderful notes. Like, we're just family, and I
Yeah.
love that. So because of that, this episode might go a couple minutes longer.
That's fine.
I'm supposed to say love to everybody.
Yeah.
Again, to Earl, love Brian.
I'm gonna do the
He
letter.
is though. He is though.
I'll do the letter. I'm ready for
He
it.
is
I'm ready for
though.
it.
You really.
I mean, I'm having so
No,
much
Brian,
fun.
you really
I
are.
mean,
You really are like
Brian
family.
Kinch-
Like really,
Kinch
it's.
is the best. And seriously,
Thank you.
I was on tour with Brian in the '90s, and we played at the 930 Club. And he goes, "Let's." Like Brian would just wake up and be like, "Let's go get a haircut." He'd be like, "Let's go skate." Whatever. Like we were in New York City, and he rolls out of his van. This van, like I'm putting on shorts. It's 120 degrees out. And this girl walks by. He goes, "Becky Johansson," and she goes, "What?" He goes, "Brian Kincheloe from the 6th grade." She goes, "Oh my God!" Like that. Like these are the things that happen with Brian.
Sure.
So Brian,
No, I know. You know everywhere,
true.
anywhere.
so
Brian
we
knows
play-
somebody.
It's from being a loudmouth. It really-
We play
that's-
the 930 Club, which is like what a wonderful thing to say you played.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, no kidding.
Oh, I think I've been there.
Check the
And
box.
we met
I
like
think
Joe's
that's where-
drummer. Like there was so
Sure you've
many.
been
It was like our summer.
Yeah,
it was
it
our
was.
summer. Of
Joe was
love.
really good to
It was
us,
our
too.
summer of love, you know.
Yeah.
And Brian's like, yo, let's go to the Holocaust Museum. I'm like, yes.
We did.
Yeah. So we go then we go to the Smithsonian and walk down the Smithsonian, and I'm seeing the name Kincheloe. He goes, oh yeah, that's my uncle. He's an astronaut. He's got like 4
Yeah,
relatives
well, you're just like,
in the
is that-
Smithsonian, you know.
Yeah, no,
so
yeah.
Pete Kinch, he's a brother. Never a father, but an uncle and a best mate.
Well, he is a
and
father, but just
songwriting
not to you.
partner.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for introducing me to Cassie,
Yep.
James.
Yep.
Well, you
being
knew
part
James,
of the show, Greg, Matt,
You met James
Casey,
outside of
Allie, the Earl, and we love these letters that
Yeah.
we get. And I get Benito. Who's it? Benito?
Yeah, Benito Lovelace. So Tom handed me this right before the show and said, Brian, you do the letter.
This show is awesome.
Tom said to do the letter. But the letter is from Benito Lovelace from Kew Gardens. This is one of your old dudes or whatever.
Rest in peace.
So,
It's where I was born and raised, Forest Hills.
but it's so long I can't read the whole thing, so I'm just going to summarize. It basically asks what, when you're a child and you hear your first influenced by music, your parents play their music.
One song.
And you get hardwired for melodies and things that your parents have played for you.
Yes.
What do you think, give one song or artist where you think, when you go to write music or think about music, the music that you like, that your parents inadvertently hardwired you for, irrespective of your opinion about music?
Right.
Like,
my mom and dad always played Obla Di, Obla Da, Life Goes On. And it's just one of the songs that I'm in my old age, I love family and I love my parents so much. So the song makes me cry sometimes, and it can mean nothing to anybody, but that's okay. That's what's beautiful about music. For me, it's just like, I remember my mom singing that song to me, like, give me a bath, you know? And like, that's like beautiful,
Oh, not me, right? I'm still sitting here thinking,
so
you go, because
I
I
have
can't.
the interesting, I didn't grow up with parents that listened to rock and roll at all.
Yeah.
They listened to Bee Gees and Carpenters and
Because they,
soft rock.
they were librarians and astronauts.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
But
true.
and then my family comes from, my uncle founded the School of Music at UGA, and great uncle Hugh, and my grandfather and my great aunts, they were Juilliard's pianists, and so there was jazz in the house, right?
Yeah.
So I think I was influenced mostly by jazz, but probably in the back of my mom's car in the 70s, cruising around, listening to Bee Gees, the Carpenters. I'm pretty sure when I still write music to this day, there are certain ways that music moves that I think I'm still influenced mostly by probably the Bee Gees and the Carpenters.
Carpenters and the Bee Gees are
It's
awesome.
the same.
Awesome.
It wires our entire generation like to melody.
Yeah.
Is through through those two, through our parents. That's the same way with me. And we're both like the same age, and we both were like freshmen at UGA at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like our parents are exactly the same age, and and it's like Karen Carpenter and like the brothers Gibb, and just getting, all that, programmed into you, so that all your sense of melody comes from that, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
crazy.
I'm not a musician, so I'm not going to say, but I'm going to say, like, as far as, like, my weird or I like music that's not necessarily mainstream, and what I'm about to say actually was, like, a mainstream thing, but for a little kid, it was kind of, like, I would say, as far as influence, like, my mom loved the Beatles, and a lot of my life, she grew, of course she knew that, so I got a lot of that, but I remember when I was really, really young, like I was I don't know, like I was like 3, 4, something, 5.
Yeah.
She took me to the drive-in, we saw Tommy.
Oh, wonderful.
No, but I mean, I think, but I had nightmares later. But I'm just kind of saying, it's kind of a weird movie for a toddler
Yes,
that
well,
doesn't
for a
understand anything.
kid, yeah.
So it's like, my parents were really, really young when they had me, and so it's like, and they were really into music and kind of hippies and kind of like, so I kind of had some weird introductions to music and kind of the whole, and even though I had nightmares, I think I turned out okay
Tommy.
overall.
I just real quick, I just thought of one thing
Yeah,
that's super
please.
cool about my mom. So we didn't grow up listening to rock and roll. I discovered Led
Your
Zeppelin.
mom is a superhero. She's put people
She
in
is.
jail. Your mom has put people in jail, by the way.
Superhero.
For stealing library books. I didn't discover Led Zeppelin or Hendrix until like literally high school, right?
Right,
I discovered
right,
that on my own.
later.
But our babysitter, Todd Render from Redondo Beach, was into the Minutemen and the
Yeah,
Damned. and all
Redondo
this.
Beach, right
And
there.
so my mother's so
SST,
cool
right
that
there.
for his birthday, this is like 79 and 80, she would take 3 boys, my brother's still in a carriage, and me like 5 years old to the record bar, and we would select punk vinyl to buy for Todd for his birthday. So I was buying punk vinyl for my babysitter. And so my parents weren't into rock and roll, but they would buy like the Damned
Yeah.
and
So-
Devo and
And
the
your
Police
parents
was
are
my
pretty-
mom's
your
favorite.
parents
you
are
know?
pretty badass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mabel Ann Kincheloe, who's been nothing but good to me. Brian's mom, a superhero, by the way, wears a cape. Goes out at night, no one knows where she's at. She's jumping on roofs. Amazing woman. Think about that. But the reality is, that's rock and roll.
Yeah,
Her
this is
doing
a
that,
very
that's
like
punk.
this is a very parental episode.
Yes.
Like Wire is the parental band.
Kind of.
Of all of
I
us.
don't want this to end. I know we're going late. Matt, one of our producers, love you, Matt.
Okay,
Thank
well, you
We
want to
do-
wrap it up?
We do need to wrap it up. I want to thank the Earl.
Wait, one thing.
Yeah.
There is something really important.
There's some crazy stuff going on.
So today is August 18th, and
What?
today is August 8th, and next week is James' birthday.
It is.
Happy birthday!
All right.
So happy birthday, James!
Virgo.
Oh my God! Thank you, Matt.
Oh.
Here you go.
Oh God.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Can I blow this out?
Well, there's no, because it's not. No. Nobody
Cheers.
spits on cakes
Happy
anymore
birthday,
in a
everybody.
pandemic.
Happy birthday.
Casey,
Bye.
did it.
Happy birthday.
Cheers.
Happy birthday.
the Earl, East Atlanta, Greg,
This is fancy. There you go.
Blood Circuits, Order the Owl.
Yeah. Thank you. Virgos unite. Who else is a Virgo?
I'm a
We're
Gemini.
gonna end on this.
Most likely to be a serial killer.
Virgos are halfway decent people.
That's right.
Love you, buddy.
Yeah, happy birthday.
birthday.
Gotcha.
Let's have some cake.
No, actually, I have plates and everything. I can't eat it though; it's not vegan. I was gonna.